private, and that's Adam Schiff in Florida, the new chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. And some of these charges, of course, relate to Roger Stone's testimony to your committee. Your immediate reaction to all of this today?
Well, my immediate reaction is that very paragraph that you're focused on, which is that someone directed a senior campaign official to reach out to Stone to find out about future releases. People could direct a senior campaign official, and that language of direction we've seen in other indictments before, referring to individual one directing the campaign finance fraud scheme, for example. So there's probably a very select number of people that are in position to do that. And also the chronology of all this, that you have these private efforts to find out about these stolen emails and the publishing arm of the Russians, which is Wikileaks, as well as Guccifer 2, taking place around the same time that the president is calling publicly for Russian help in hacking Clinton's emails, taking place not long after the Russians communicated that they had dirt on Hillary Clinton, were offering to help the Trump campaign in the setup to that Trump Tower New York meeting. And, of course, you've got the contacts that the Russians had through intermediaries with George Papadopoulos, where they informed the campaign they had Hillary's emails. So you all see this as part of a big picture coming together, additional pieces being placed in the puzzle.
Now, you've also got in this indictment some really interesting language about obstruction of justice, witness tampering alleged, and his having said many times that he would never give in, he would never talk about anything, he would never cooperate. This, as a former prosecutor, you know very well that there could eventually be a superseding indictment. I mean, is this a pressure tactic to get him to cooperate?
You know, it's possible that the special counsel has in mind other charges once Roger Stone's cooperation. But at the same time, you know, enforcing the notion that you can't come before Congress and lie is in itself an important aim of the special counsel, and it's obviously very important to our committee. This is now the second witness before our committee that has either pled to charges or been indicted for making false statements to our committee, and I think that stands on its own as an imperative. But you certainly do see I think a gathering of momentum in terms of the evidence that the special counsel is putting out, the information we're learning about these contacts, these meetings, these communications, all of which Mr. Stone denied to our committee in the most flagrant way. The other thing I have to say that leaps out at me about this, when you look at the discussions between Mr. Stone and one of the two individuals where he is making references to the Godfather film or threatening this witness if they testify or threatening his dog. I mean, it is really mafia mob-like tactics. And, of course, you have the president using mafia mob-like terms of rat. You have the president and his lawyer trying to intimidate another witness, Michael Cohen, who will be coming before our committee. So it's really astonishing. It all harkens back to something James Comey once said, which is his impression in dealing with the president and people around him was like dealing with a mafia boss.
Well, you mentioned that, and in the indictment itself, it says, on multiple occasions, including on or about December 1st, 2017, Stone told Person 2 that Person 2 should do a Frank Pentangeli before your committee in order to avoid contradicting Stone's testimony. Frank Pentangeli is a character in the film The Godfather Part 2, which both Stone and Person 2 had discussed, who testifies before a congressional committee and in that testimony claims not to know critical information that he does in fact know. I'm probably pronouncing the name, but let's watch the clip.
Look, the FBI guys, they promised me a deal. So I made up a lot of stuff about Michael Corleone, because that's what they wanted. But it was all lies. Everything. And I kept saying, Michael Corleone did this, and Michael Corleone did that. So I said, yeah, sure, why not?
Mr. Corleone, would you kindly identify for the committee the gentleman sitting to your left?
I can answer that. His name is Vincenzo Pintan.
Is he related to the witness?
He is, I believe, his brother.
Will he come forward and be sworn, sir?
Sir, this man does not understand English. He came at his own expense to aid his brother in his time of trouble. He's not under subpoena, and his reputation in his own country is impeccable.
Are you saying he knows nothing about these matters?
To my knowledge, nothing.
I did mispronounce it. It's Pentangeli. But the fact is that in that great scene, Mr. Chairman, of course, the mob, the Godfather, brought in the brother from Sicily, and with that, the witness caved, took a dive, and eventually went to jail and killed himself.
Well, you know, it is all too often the case in the last couple of years of the Trump administration that life is more strange than art. A lot of the things that are going on today, if you put them into a script, would never be produced because they'd be too implausible. But it is, you know, so destructive of our system of rule of law that you have a president of the United States who overtly is attempting to interfere with witness testimony before Congress, who is praising people who refuse to cooperate. He has at times lionized Roger Stone. He has lionized Paul Manafort's refusal to testify or cooperate, and at the same time called people rats that do cooperate, do make amends, do want to make recompense for what they've done. And sadly, you know, this is not at the moment in the realm of film, it's in the realm of the presidency.
Where do you take this next in your committee?
Well, we're determined to continue to follow the evidence, bring in additional witnesses on this investigative thread. There were several that we were not allowed to proceed further on. We had wanted to subpoena Roger Stone's emails and text messages. We had wanted to compel other testimony. The majority was largely uninterested in doing so and took the position that we should accept at face value whatever witnesses said before our committee. Well, we have now seen repeatedly how flawed an investigative strategy that is. So we're going to pursue this. We're going to find out just who was directing senior campaign officials to interact with Mr. Stone, to find out about future releases. There's also, I think, more to the story than what we have seen laid out in this indictment. And because the Attorney General nominee is not committed to releasing the Mueller report to Congress or other evidence to Congress, we're going to have to make sure we find out the facts ourselves, because at the end of the day, we intend to let the American people know exactly what happened, what the president's role was, what the role was of people around him, and that's our mission.
And I'm not going to ask you to speculate, but do you have any idea who the campaign official was who was supposedly ordered to give Stone orders to get more information from Wikileaks?
Well, you know, I don't want to go into both the evidence that we have as well as our suspicions about who various roles. There have been already public accounts of some of the emails and who might have been on the other end of some of these emails. But it's clear that some of the witnesses came in before our committee and refused to answer questions are going to have to come back. And this time we'll have the power of the subpoena to compel them to answer questions. Others that we wanted to bring before the committee, but the majority refused, we will be bringing in so that we understand the full nature of the contact the Trump campaign and those associated with it had with this, this publishing arm of the Kremlin in WikiLeaks.
Thank you so much.